I thought opening our marriage would bring us closer, but now I'm unexpectedly pregnant, and instead of support, my family has disowned me, and my husband is filing for divorce, leaving me utterly alone, heartbroken, and terrified of the life I've created. I'm a 38-year-old woman. Let's go with the name Francine. And my husband, Rye, is 44. We got married when I was just 19, about a month after I gave birth to our daughter, Libby. Libby is now 19, and about a year after she was born, we had our son, Craig. Both kids are now in college, attending the same school about 5 hours away from us. Even though we married young, had limited finances, and were raising a baby, Rye and I managed to build a good life together. He's always had a solid job and has been an incredible provider, husband, and father, even back in those early days. I worked part-time 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we managed just fine. We're financially stable now, we own our home, have a comfortable savings, and up until recently, we were an unshakable family unit. The four of us were a true team. That all changed when I got caught up with someone who turned out to be incredibly manipulative. It started off so simple. We have a dog who's basically another member of our family. As I said, I work part-time, so I'm home on Tuesdays and Thursdays. On those days, I take our dog to the park. When I work, Rye comes home on his lunch break to walk her, and we both walk her on weekends. About 3 months ago, I met a man at the park. Let's call him Leonard. He's 37. Our dogs hit it off right away. Leonard told me he'd seen me at the park before, though I couldn't recall seeing him. But soon enough, we were running into each other regularly, and our conversations got longer each time. At first, there was nothing questionable, just casual chats between two people who loved their dogs. One evening during dinner, I mentioned Leonard to Rye. I asked if he'd ever noticed a man with a dog like Leonard's at the park. Rye said, "No." I told him our dog and Leonard's had become good friends. We laughed about it, and that was it. Just a passing story. But then, things started to shift. About 2 months ago, Leonard told me he lived nearby, in a luxury apartment complex just a quarter mile from the park, and maybe half a mile from our house. I told him a friend of mine was considering moving there, which was actually true at the time, and asked what the apartments were like inside. He offered to show me, suggesting I stop by with my dog and take some pictures for my friend. I should have declined. I didn't. I went. The moment I stepped into his apartment, I knew I had crossed a boundary. I only stayed for about 10 minutes, thanked him, and said I had to get going. As I left, he asked if I'd be at the park again the following Tuesday. I said I would. That was the start of my betrayal. I didn't tell Rye about the visit, and that night, instead of feeling guilty, I overcompensated. I cooked a beautiful dinner, curled up next to him on the couch, and we had a lovely evening together. The following Tuesday, I met Leonard again. We talked for nearly 2 hours. As we wrapped up, I told him we needed to dial back the friendship. We were approaching a line we shouldn't cross. He agreed, but then said it felt so right that our chemistry was undeniable. And the worst part? I agreed. Things escalated fast. That next Tuesday, I went to his apartment again. This time, it turned physical, and afterward, instead of guilt, I felt an intense desire for Rye. That night, I was more passionate than ever, and we shared another wonderful evening. Looking back, I'm sickened by myself. But I can't lie. Leonard and I continued seeing each other in secret every Tuesday and Thursday. This went on until what I now call my D-Day, just this past Friday, almost 2 months after the affair turned physical. In hindsight, I should have known something was up with Rye 2 weeks ago. He started acting distant, his replies were short, he didn't want to talk, and he rejected my advances several times. He also stopped initiating anything. Then he began working late, often not coming home until after 8 p.m. He told me his team was buried in a big presentation and that they were working through meals at the office. While that wasn't totally out of character, it was unusual for something to last 2 whole weeks. When I asked him more about it, he said it was a confidential project wrapping up that Friday. I believed him and even felt a little excited, thinking that things would go back to normal once the work stress was gone. He promised to make it up to me and said we'd have an emotionally fulfilling weekend together. But Friday brought emotions I wasn't ready for. When I got home, I saw a large manila envelope taped to the front door with my name on it. Inside were printed pages, dozens of them, filled with messages exchanged between Leonard and me. We'd used fake Facebook accounts to communicate, and every word was there in black and white. I froze. Then I burst into tears. I could barely breathe. For a moment, I even considered calling someone, but I didn't know who. I dropped the envelope and started pacing. My mind was racing. Who had put it there? Leonard? Rye? Someone else? I got my answer when I walked into the bedroom. Sitting on the bed was a white gift box with a big red bow. There was a card attached. My name in the to line, Rye's name in the from line. Hands shaking, I opened it. Inside were divorce papers. That's when everything fell apart. I collapsed on the bed and cried so hard I couldn't even scream. I just buried my face in a pillow and let it all out. After what felt like an eternity, I sat up and tried to pull myself together. I rehearsed what I'd say and then called Rye. He didn't answer. I kept calling. Still nothing. I tried texting him. No reply. Frantic, I called and texted both Libby and Craig. No answer from either of them. That was when the panic really set in. Not long after, I finally got a message from Rye. It read, "I know everything. So do Libby and Craig. My family knows. Your parents know too. Found out about 15 minutes ago. I've moved out and signed a lease. You'll hear from my lawyer soon. Enjoy your new life with Leonard." I cried for hours, only stopping to answer a call from my mom. But instead of comforting me, she launched into a tirade, not letting me get a single word in before she hung up on me. I kept trying to call her back, but she wouldn't answer. I finally reached out to my dad and he picked up. When I asked to speak with my mom, he said she had nothing more to say to me right now. Then he told me how disappointed and ashamed he was, and that he never imagined his own daughter could do something like this. His words crushed me. I couldn't stop crying. I kept apologizing over and over, but he stayed quiet while I poured my heart out. When I finally stopped talking, he told me to pull myself together and try to be better. I just said, "Okay, Daddy, I will," and we ended the call. At that point, I felt way too embarrassed to talk to friends or any other family member. So, I locked myself in my bedroom and cried alone. I realized I had to call Leonard, not just to tell him our relationship was over, but also because I desperately needed someone to talk to. When he answered, the first thing he said was, "Why, are you using your real phone? Why not our fake Facebook accounts?" I didn't sugarcoat it. I told him my husband had found out about the affair and was filing for divorce. Leonard just said, "Oh no, he knows." I said I wasn't sure how my husband found out. Leonard asked if maybe he had seen the fake Facebook account, and I said that was probably it. Then he asked if my husband knew who he was, and I said yes. My husband even mentioned Leonard by name in the text he sent me. Leonard freaked out. He started swearing and shouting the F word so loudly that his dog started barking. After that, meltdown. He took a deep breath and said, "Okay, I'm sorry this happened, but you were careless. Let's cut all ties. Delete everything. Our accounts, our phone numbers. Maybe you can still save your marriage. Please don't contact me again." I was stunned and disgusted. Not even an apology. No offer to help fix what we'd broken. No thank you for the time we'd shared. Nothing but self-preservation. That was it. I just replied, "Okay. How could I have been so stupid? I cheated on Rye with that? Someone so spineless and cold? I'm writing this at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, which probably tells you where my head's at. I've taken the week off to try and reach my husband and kids, to apologize and hopefully start healing. I don't know what to do next. I feel like I've lost everything because of what I did. Have any of you gone through this? Cheated and been immediately cut off? Rye's gone. He wants nothing to do with me. I understand he's hurt, but to just erase me completely and file for divorce over one mistake, it feels brutal. Please, if anyone has advice, I'd really appreciate it. Update. I'm back because I need somewhere to vent. The pain is overwhelming. My kids finally called me back while they were driving home after ignoring me for 3 days. I was hoping for a chance to talk and say I'm sorry, but instead, they hurled insults and called me names I've never heard them say before. Libby was especially harsh, and her anger seemed to influence her brother too. I told them I was manipulated by Leonard, and felt like I'd been taken advantage of. I reminded them that up until now, I'd been a good mom and a loyal wife to their dad. But Libby said I used to be great. Now I was awful. The worst. She ended the call by saying they were spending the weekend with their dad. And I shouldn't expect to see them at all. That hit hard, especially with Mother's Day this weekend. That day used to be so special, something my kids and Rye always made memorable for me. This year, I'll be spending it alone, with my dog, who thankfully still loves me no matter what. I get that a lot of what they're feeling is raw anger. Still, it hurts deeply. I'm not looking for pity, just maybe a little encouragement. To those of you who've sent kind messages, thank you. You don't know how much that's meant to me. I'll keep updating if anything changes. Update 2. Thanks to all who've been asking for updates. I've been in individual therapy for 2 weeks now, and it's been incredibly helpful. My therapist is amazing. She's given me the strength to keep pushing forward. She told me I've done everything I can to try to repair the damage. Now, I have to step back and let time do its part. She said if my family comes back, it means the love was always real. If they don't, it means maybe it wasn't. That really stuck with me. She also suggested I try transcendental meditation, and I started last week. It's helping me stay calm and feel more in control of my thoughts. For the first time in a while, I feel like I'm not drowning in my emotions. That's where things are right now. I'll share more if anything changes. Hopefully, next time, I'll be able to say that Rye and the kids have taken me back and our family is whole again. Update 3. It's been a while, and a lot has happened. Some good, some not so much. A few weeks after my last update, I found out I'm pregnant. Yes. At 38, after over 15 years of trying for a third child, I'm pregnant. The news was shocking and honestly terrifying. Part of me was thrilled, especially if the baby is Rye's. But I was also terrified it could be Leonard's. My first instinct was to tell Rye, but I knew if I did and the baby wasn't his, I'd lose him forever. And if it was Leonard's, I didn't want to keep it. But if I ended the pregnancy and Rye found out, he'd never forgive me. He's firmly against that. So I tried to find a workaround. I contacted a DNA clinic to see if they could do a prenatal test without the father's saliva. They said maybe, but only if I had other samples, like hair follicles. I found a few in Rye's brush, but it wasn't enough. My backup plan was to reach out to Leonard, ask him to help with the test and cover the cost. But he had already blocked me and deleted his Facebook account. So I showed up at his job and waited for him. When he saw me, he looked irritated and asked what I was doing there. I told him we needed to talk. He said he didn't want to speak to me anymore and apologized for being part of destroying my marriage. In my head, I thought, yeah, right. If you were so sorry, why'd you chase me so hard? Then I blurted it out. I told him I was pregnant and he might be the father. He snapped, "Oh no. You're not trapping me with a baby. I've seen this trick before." I told him to listen, carefully. I told him that if he didn't want me walking into his office and reporting his inappropriate behavior to HR, he needed to do exactly what I asked. I told him to schedule and pay for a paternity test, and I gave him the clinic's contact info. I made it clear that if he didn't handle it within 48 hours, I'd report him that very evening. Later that day, Leonard unblocked my number and texted me saying he had set the appointment for Tuesday at 10 a.m., knowing I was off that day. We both showed up at the clinic but didn't speak a word to each other. They called Leonard in first and collected a saliva sample from him. Then, it was my turn, and they drew my blood. It took a week to get the results, but the wait was worth it. Leonard was not the father. I was overwhelmed with joy, dropped to my knees, and thanked God for blessing my husband and me with another precious child we had longed for. I was excited to tell Rye the news, but I still had no way to reach him. He had blocked me, and I didn't know where he was. At that time, both my kids were barely speaking to me. I texted them, asking for a three-way call to talk about something important. My daughter kept pressing for details, but I insisted I'd explain during the call. We finally set it up, and I shared the good news. But instead of being happy about having a new sibling, they were cold and bitter. They jumped to the conclusion that the baby was Leonard's. I reassured them that I was certain their father was the baby's dad. My son asked how I could be so sure, and I explained that I had figured it out based on the estimated conception date. At the time, I didn't want to mention the DNA test with Leonard, so I left that out. My daughter then accused me of getting pregnant on purpose to trap their father. I asked her how that made sense when everything with Leonard happened before. Rye even knew about it. She doubled down, saying I got pregnant by Rye on purpose in case he found out about the affair. I told her that was ridiculous and reminded her we'd been trying for years to have another baby. After going back and forth, they finally agreed to talk to their dad and ask him to call me. I waited all night for Rye's call, but it never came. The next day came and went with no word. Then, a little after 1 p.m., I got a voicemail from Rye's attorney. I called her back immediately. She said she represented Rye and had been informed about my pregnancy and that I claimed the baby was his. I broke down crying on the phone, begging to speak to my husband. The attorney was kind but stayed firm. Once I pulled myself together, she said Rye wanted a paternity test. I agreed right away and offered to set it up and pay for it out of my savings. She asked me to make the appointment, but said Rye would give his sample separately, without me there. I agreed. Still, I cried all night, heartbroken that Rye thought I'd lie about something this important. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't even go with me to the appointment. We both took the test, and just this morning, the results came back. Rye is the father. I already knew, but seeing it confirmed officially was a huge relief. Now, I'm trying to leave the nightmare Leonard dragged me into behind and focus on rebuilding trust and connection with my family. I'm incredibly thankful for all the love and support you've given me throughout this tough time. Final update. So many people asked for one, so here it is. Things are still a work in progress, but every day, we get a little closer to becoming a family again. Even though Leonard caused so much harm, and I made my own mistakes, we're moving forward. Rye and I did end up divorcing, despite my begging and even after confirming the baby was his. I had hoped that once he knew the truth, we could talk things out and he'd hold me and tell me everything would be okay. But that moment never came. Instead, we had a formal meeting at his lawyer's office. It was recorded. That's when he told me he was moving forward with the divorce and wanted us to become good co-parents. I broke down and asked for a moment to collect myself. When I returned, we talked custody. He wanted to share custody, but I told him I preferred. He'd take full custody, and I started crying again. Eventually, we finalized everything. We split custody equally. I received 1 year of alimony, and Rye agreed to ongoing child support. He also offered to cover half the taxes, insurance, and utilities for the family home for 2 years, so the baby would have a safe and stable place to live. Our little miracle was born in late January. After 15 years of trying, he finally arrived, and has brought so much light into our lives. He even helped bring my family back together. My relationships with Libby and Craig, my daughter and son, are back to normal. They adore their little brother. Libby was in the delivery room with me, and since the baby was born, they've both been coming home from college every weekend to spend time with him. Rye has also been around a lot. He comes by after work and stays until I put the baby down for bed. Just yesterday, he brought over takeout. We didn't eat together, but it still felt like a good step. We're on friendly terms. We haven't talked about the affair or the divorce. I haven't brought it up or asked him to reconcile. I'm still going to therapy, and my therapist told me to give Rye space and not push things. So far, that approach seems to be working. Each day, I feel like I'm slowly reconnecting with him. I'm taking the same gentle approach with Libby and Craig. If I do win Rye back one day, as a husband or even just a life partner, I promise I'll never take him for granted again. He and our kids are everything to me, and I'll do whatever it takes to show them how much I cherish them. That's all the news I have for now. I wish things could go back to how they used to be, but I know that's not realistic. So I'm choosing to be thankful for what I do have, and honestly, it's pretty wonderful. This might be my last post unless Rye and I officially get back together. If that happens, I'll definitely be back to share the good news. Thank you again to everyone who's supported me through all of this. Okay, that was quite a journey. Now let's move on to another story, one that's just as interesting, if not more, so stay tuned. Hi there. I really need to get something off my chest and would love an outside opinion. I'll try to keep it short and wrap things up clearly in the end. Back in February, my husband, 33M, and I, 31F, had just hit our 1-year wedding anniversary when he had to travel to the UK for a major business deal. It was supposed to be 3 weeks, but things got extended for 2 more weeks so they could finalize the agreement. This was the first time we'd been apart in 6 years, and emotionally, I was all over the place. I can get clingy and overly sensitive when things don't go as expected. It's something I've always struggled with. On top of that, I deal with mental health challenges that make me insecure and paranoid, especially when it comes to fearing that my husband might cheat on me. When the trip got extended, I panicked. I even called his office to make sure the whole team was really still overseas. During this time apart, I struck up a casual friendship with our neighbor. One night, after watching a movie together, things took a turn. I let things spiral out of control. That night, I was overwhelmed with worry about my husband's situation, and somehow, in that vulnerable state, our neighbor became physically affectionate with me. My anxiety held me back from letting it go further that night. But the next day, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I didn't want to live with the regret of not knowing where things might lead. And they did lead somewhere. Straight into a full-blown affair. Over the next few meetups, whether at his place or mine, I kept feeling anxious about my husband, but oddly, I didn't feel a crushing sense of guilt. That made me wonder if something might be wrong with me on a deeper level. Then things got messy. Really messy. In early March, my husband came home without warning. He wanted to surprise me, like that was a good idea. The house was a total disaster. Beer cans and snack wrappers everywhere, especially on the bed, and dirty laundry all over the place. It looked like a tornado had hit. Given that I wasn't expecting him, I hadn't cleaned up. The bed was the biggest red flag. When he asked what happened, I said I had friends over because I'd been feeling lonely. We hung out, played games, had some drinks. Nothing wild. I don't know if he believed me, but after seeing the mess, he started cleaning. I tried to stop him, because I knew what he might find. Sure enough, he did. He found a bag in the trash with a used condom, the wrapper, and even a toothbrush. My heart dropped. I was shaking. Somehow, I held it together and said there had been 2 couples over that night, hinting that things got intimate. Just not with me. He stared at me for a long time. I could tell he didn't buy it. That's when I broke down and confessed. Everything. I told him about the affair with our neighbor. His face said it all. Disappointment, pain, anger, and fear all rolled into one. I dropped to my knees, begging for forgiveness, asking for a second chance. But deep down, I wasn't even sure I deserved one. I tried to explain that it was a one-time thing, a terrible lapse in judgment brought on by loneliness and vulnerability. He didn't believe that either. He suspected the affair lasted the whole time he was gone. Then he gave me 3 conditions. If we were going to move forward, it had to have been just once. It wasn't planned, and there were absolutely no romantic feelings involved. He said if any of those weren't true, he'd leave me. He also asked to see my messages with the neighbor from the past few months to check if we had any ongoing emotional connection. But I'd already deleted everything. No backups. So now, all he has is my word. Honestly, if he'd seen those messages, that would have been the end of us anyway. Part of me feels like he'd be better off without me. I've been thinking about filing for divorce myself. I heard he already talked to a lawyer, and I'd rather be the one to file than have him serve me papers. So what do you think? I know, I was wrong, but I feel like there's still a chance. Couples go through worse and survive. I'm open to your advice. I want to hear what you think. Update. Hey everyone, I wanted to share an update. Thank you for all the support and advice. It's meant a lot during this rough time. This community has really helped me get through the emotional mess I've been in. After a lot of soul-searching and some hard conversations, my husband and I sat down and talked again. I realized I needed to be brutally honest. No more holding back. I told him everything. What really happened while he was away on his business trip. It wasn't easy. It was painful and raw. But I knew if we had any chance of moving forward, honesty was the only path. I admitted everything. How I betrayed him, how I let my emotions take over, and how I didn't think about his feelings. He was heartbroken, angry, confused. It took him a while to even respond. He asked for space, and I respected that. Eventually, he told me he'd made a decision. He said the affair hurt, but the lies and cover-up hurt even more. He didn't know if he could ever trust me again. He asked me to move out to give him space to figure things out. But I said no. I'm still his wife, and I have legal rights to the house. I couldn't just leave without having a plan. Things have been tense since. He's been trying to push, be out, getting angry, guilt-tripping me, even lashing out. But I'm done being passive. I told him plainly, I'm not leaving. Don't get me wrong, I feel horrible about what I've done. I know I caused him real pain, but I'm not giving up on us. Not yet. I'm willing to do the work to rebuild trust, no matter how long it takes. I'm not doing this for the neighbor. Cut that off completely. I'm doing this for my husband, and for what we still might have. I understand this won't be easy, but I still believe it's possible. Every couple has challenges. Ours is just bigger than most. But if he's willing to try, so am I. And if he chooses to walk away, I'll accept it. But I won't go down without a fight. Thanks again for being here. I'll keep sharing updates as things evolve. Please keep us in your thoughts. Update. So, another update. My husband served me divorce papers. It crushed me. Deep down, I'd hoped we might still work it out. But he seems determined to move on. We're still living under the same roof, and it's beyond awkward. He avoids me like I'm contagious. Both our families know now, and no one's really on my side. My parents and in-laws have all said how disappointed they are in me. We're barely speaking. I'm trying to get through this alone, and it's incredibly hard. Divorce scares me. Not just because of the shame or what people in town will say, but because of how drastically it'll change my life. I messed up, yes, but I'm also terrified of starting over, being alone, having to rebuild everything. From scratch. That fear probably explains why I reacted so strongly when he asked me to move out. I still care about him. I'm realizing how much damage I've done. The thought of us being over is unbearable. But maybe it's a consequence I have to face, and there's something else. I've always wanted a family, and lately I've been feeling sick. I hoped, maybe foolishly, that I might be pregnant. It's not the best timing, I know, but I also thought maybe, just maybe, having a baby could change things. My husband wouldn't walk away from his child, right? So I took a few home tests, but they were all negative. I've decided to get a lab test done just to be sure. I'm feeling sick just thinking about what happens if I'm not pregnant. Is this really the end of us? Edit. I'm not pregnant. Finding out I wasn't pregnant hit me harder than I expected. I sat in the bathroom holding the test, trying to process the wave of disappointment crashing over me. Part of me had clung to the idea of a baby as some kind of miracle solution, a way to bind us back together, to make this all mean something. But that option was gone. All I was left with was the reality of a broken marriage and the consequences of my choices. My husband didn't say anything when I told him the result. He just nodded slightly, barely looking at me, and went back to whatever he was doing. The silence between us had grown heavier by the day. We barely spoke, except for short, cold exchanges about bills or groceries. We lived in the same space, but it felt like we were planets drifting further apart. Every now and then, I'd try to talk about anything. I asked if he wanted coffee, if he was okay, how his day was. Most of the time, he just gave me a distant yeah or walked away. I tried to respect his space, but it felt like I was living with a stranger. The hardest part wasn't the tension. It was knowing I caused it. One night, I caught him standing by the window, staring outside in the dark. I asked if he was okay. He didn't answer right away, but after a moment he said, "I just don't know who you are anymore." That broke me. I had nothing to say because honestly, I wasn't sure who I was either. I started therapy on my own. I didn't tell him at first, but I needed help. I needed to understand how I got here, how I let everything spiral the way it did. The sessions were uncomfortable at first. I hated talking about myself, but I stuck with it. Week after week, I dug deeper. I started seeing patterns, things I hadn't noticed before. How I avoid confrontation, how I bury my emotions, how I chase connection in all the wrong places when I'm scared or lonely. Eventually, I told my husband I was going. Not to impress him, not to change his mind, just because I wanted to be honest. He didn't react much. He just said, "That's good, I guess." Then one evening, out of nowhere, he sat down across from me at the kitchen table and asked, "Why him? Why the neighbor?" It wasn't angry. He just genuinely wanted to understand. And for the first time, I told him everything without sugarcoating it. That I wasn't looking for anything serious. That I felt abandoned and scared. That it was never about love. It was about escaping my own emotions. I told him it wasn't worth it. That I didn't even like the guy afterward. I just hated how empty and helpless I felt. And I tried to fill that with something reckless and stupid. He sat there quietly, eyes on the table. After a long pause, he asked, "Do you still want this marriage?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said. "I do. But not just for comfort or guilt. I want to rebuild. This because I still love you. Because I know I failed you and myself. And because I want to grow into someone who deserves to be loved the right way." He didn't respond right away, but he didn't walk away either. That was the first night we talked. Not argued, not avoided, but talked, really talked, since he got back. Over the next few weeks, we started to reconnect in small ways. We'd eat dinner at the same table. We watched a few shows together. He still slept in the guest room, and he still kept his distance emotionally. But something was shifting. He started asking questions about therapy, about how I was doing, about what I wanted moving forward. And he began opening up too. How angry he'd been, how betrayed he felt, how hard it was to trust again. I didn't defend myself. I just listened. One night he told me he hadn't canceled the divorce, but he also hadn't signed the final papers. He said he wasn't sure yet what the right decision was. That uncertainty used to terrify me. Now, I accepted it. All I could do was show up, be honest, and keep working on myself. It's been a few months now. We're still in the same house, still in limbo, kind of. We've started attending marriage counseling together, and it's been intense. Some sessions end with one of us walking out. Others end in tears. But we keep going. We keep showing up. And that means something. There are days when I think we'll never get back to what we had. But there are also days, small, fragile moments, when I catch him smiling at something I say, or when he reaches out to touch my hand without thinking. Those moments give me hope. I've stopped trying to force anything. I'm learning to be patient, to let things heal naturally. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece, on my own terms. I've taken up journaling again. I started working part-time at a local shop, something small, just to keep myself busy and grounded. It feels good to have a routine again. It feels good to stand on my own 2 feet, even if everything around me still feels shaky. As for the neighbor, I haven't seen or spoken to him since everything came out. I avoid his side of the street. I deleted his number. That chapter is closed for good. I still don't know how our story ends. Maybe my husband and I make it through this and come out stronger. Maybe we don't. Maybe we part ways. And this chapter becomes a painful but necessary turning point in both our lives. I'm preparing myself for either outcome. But I do know this. I've changed. I've grown. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm proud of the work I've put in since. I used to think love meant never messing up. Now, I think it means being willing to face your worst moments and still trying to be better every single day. Thank you to everyone who's followed my story, who offered advice, encouragement, or even tough love. I know not everyone agrees with my choices. I don't always agree with them either. But this has been a space where I could be honest, where I could be human. And for that, I'm grateful. Wherever life takes me from here, I'll carry these lessons with me. I'm not the same person I was when this all began. And honestly, I'm okay with that.